humans. Hello humans. It's July 12th. It's probably around 11 a.m. here. I haven't checked recently. Been doing a lot of work and just thought I'd drop in and do another little video. I'm getting pissed at these WEFers, the World Economic Forum people. We're right up against, okay, so let me back up a bit. Today's July 12th. I expect from my emotional tension sampling routines that we're going to run into a something between the 12th and the 17th that I'm calling the pivot point, the stumble, the fall, all of these things relating to the big ugly, because we're in that period right now. We're in the big ugly period, and the World Economic Forum, as the face of the global kazarian mafia globalist conspiracy to take over the world and dominate us all and make us eat bugs and own nothing and you know, be idiots and slaves and that kind of thing. That movement has run its course. It always fails. It fails predictably. They get so far and then they crash. We've been doing this cycle for, or doing this in waves for about 6,000 years, fighting this developing pattern, I guess, working out our karma, whatever is the reason for it, and we're there again now. So I expect between the 12th, between today and the 17th, probably with more, or there is a larger probability it'll be closer to the 17th than today, but I expect we'll run into a something, a pivot, where the social order will in essence stumble into a exposure of the big ugly. Now the big ugly is how I'm labeling the two competing masses here. Okay, so the Kazarian mafia are adrenochrome swigging, child raping pedophiles that are also murderers and do all kinds of other heinous acts. All right, now so they're truly the big ugly, but it is necessary that those people that are fighting them at this point remove as many possible shields to that ugliness for the rest of the population in order that that population might wake up. So it's in the interest of the self-organizing collective, the SOC, that is opposing the Kazarian mafia. It is in their interest that we become very much exposed to all of the evilness that is within that Kazarian mafia and their organization and everything that they do. So I expect from this point on through the rest of this year, once we get to that stumbling point, whatever the hell it is, I don't know what information will be released. This is an information war, bear in mind. We're attempting to influence hearts and minds here. So the SOC is going to go ahead and introduce this information in such a way as to have the maximum emotional impact that will carry forward through the rest of the year as they pile on more and more stuff, and we get to a greater and greater exposure level of the big ugly that is the Kazarian mafia. And see, basically what it's going to come down to is we have revolution now, revolution around the world, Sri Lanka, Holland, you know, anywhere that there's economic distress is now a point, a spark point of new social action, new public actions, populist actions that will continue and then ultimately be successful and be called a revolution. So in Sri Lanka, it wasn't a revolution until the president ran away. It was a public action in protest of the conditions that they're undergoing at the moment. This breakdown phase of the financial system is the trigger for all of the populace globally to become active and to participate in these public actions and to take on the Kazarian mafia, which has the World Economic Forum basically as its face, as its public face. So we're going to get into the big ugly now. So the war is broken out. We're going to start seeing more and more of the evil that is the Kazarian mafia and what they've done. And we will see an escalation of the fear porn on the part of the Kazarian mafia against the SOC, trying to overwhelm it. So we're going to get into this period of negative Nelliness coming out of the leftist and the progressives, because they're fed and controlled by the Kazarian mafia through the World Economic Forum. And so we'll start seeing a lot of negative stories. Oh, the human race is doomed. We're going to have a social order collapse. It's going to be worse than the collapse of civilization for thousands of years. We're all going to be swept away in a giant tide of history. It's going to be really damn negative. That's their whole thing. They need to get everybody set up in their minds in this battle for the hearts and minds to accept negativity, because these guys are coming at us and they want us to just keel over and die, basically. So they're just going to pour this shit out like mad. You're going to see World Economic Forum people out there spouting out their ass about climate change, about the horrific aspects of life on this earth, and how all life is going to perish, and it's all humans' faults, and so on and so on and so on, which is all horseshit. Okay, so one of the things I want to address is that as you see those stories, remember, none of those people will acknowledge the biosphere. They hate Russians, but they hate Vernadsky more than most Russians. Okay, they hate him not because he's Russian, but because he was a brilliant scientist who came up with this staggering mental construct that is greater in concept than Darwin's survival of the species and evolution. Much greater than Darwin. Darwin was a little blip in history put forth by the Kazarian mafia, and was mostly wrong about his conclusions. Vernadsky's the other way. Vernadsky is just not acknowledged. Nobody knows who the fuck he is. He's just brilliant with his conceptualization and evidentiary support for the biosphere and for geochemistry on the Earth as being a direct result of the biosphere and life. So here's the concept. The Kazarian mafia wants you to think that we live on a ball of minerals with some water on it and a little air around it, and that at any given moment our existence here on this planet is so tenuous that we're likely to just go poof and all exist and all cease to exist. That's the Kazarian mafia's viewpoint. That's their agenda that they're trying to push out. So that's the central bank. Okay, the climate change, you got to eat bugs, we're destroying the planet, blah, 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 blah. Now, the reason that they won't ever tell you about Vernadsky, Vladimir Vernadsky, and his book Biosphere and Noosphere, the reason they won't ever tell you about this is because they are directly fighting what he had conceptualized and discovered as a natural organic process in universe. And so just get this idea. We are not living on a ball of minerals. The minerals don't exist without life. Vernadsky proves in his Biosphere book, mathematically, evidentiarily, empirically, and through conclusions, that we are an essential process of the formation of planets is life. And that if you don't have life, you don't have a planet, no matter how big it is. And he goes on and on and on. But here's something to understand. If we were to go down, all right, so I'm sitting here and I'm breathing as you're breathing, and we're taking in oxygen, carbon dioxide, all this kind of stuff, and so we're putting carbon into our lungs, and we're separating carbon dioxide, the oxygen, we're spewing carbon dioxide back out, we're sucking in nitrogen, so we're taking in actual elements into our bodies through all of these different sources. We drink them, we eat them, you get skin contact, and you absorb all these materials. So in that sense, the material of the earth here that I have absorbed that goes into my body is in life. It's in the biosphere. And in that sense, all of this materials, all 181 pounds of me, yeah, I've gained some weight, I got to get it back into muscle because I'm getting some blubber on me. But all 181 pounds of me is minerals that are actively involved in being alive. They're not part of any of this stuff around here. But when I die, they will return, some of them will return to the inert matter that supports the biosphere. But get this, all of the life you see around us, you included, we're all carrying all of these materials. So we can think of this as horizontal transport of minerals and materials through the biosphere. Because, basically, you get born in Washington State, but you get moved all around the planet. So all around the planet, you're shitting out material, right? You're putting minerals and stuff that you no longer use into the biosphere in those points of the planet. So you as a life form, as you go traveling and become a tourist, are participating in horizontal transport of minerals through the biosphere. And this is a funny example. You're going to think it's odd. Even your dog participates when you take your dog traveling with you, right? Direct deposit of minerals right on the site. All right, so here's the idea, though. All of life, grass, birds, every damn thing, microbes in the soil, microbes in the air, all of this stuff. Every little bit of life, written large, is in the business of transporting horizontally and putting down minerals throughout the biosphere. All of life on this planet, right this minute, is moving all of this stuff that you see around me. Everything out in the ocean, all the little critters out there, the plankton, all the way up to the whales. We're all moving material through biosphere of the Earth as a dynamic process. That biosphere is so powerful, it is so large, and it's so massive that if we were to take and go down 16 miles, or 16 kilometers, it's all in kilometers, 16 kilometers into the crust of the Earth and take all of that material, 16 miles deep and everything on top of it, including the Himalayan mountains, including all the ocean on top of it, all of that. If we were to take all of that material down 16 miles into the Earth, it still does not equal the amount of material that's moving throughout the biosphere in life on Earth at this moment. So we are an integral part of the biosphere. It is our job as creatures within the materium, as life, spirit, animating matter. Matter is, this stuff here that's sitting on this material and the material that is being sat upon. It is our job to do this horizontal transport, to alter the rock that would be the Earth without life on it. And in doing so, we fulfill a great purpose for universe. It creates the biosphere. It creates us in the biosphere to be active, to help in that transport, to alter the planet, to do terraforming, if you want to call it that. It's more life forming, it's more vita forming than it is terraforming. You end up with terra firma, after the vitae, all of the life, or during the process of all of the life doing all of this, right? And so the biosphere is a very, very, very powerful concept. It's mathematically powerful because you can analyze how fast your biosphere is going to grow based on the amount of solar radiation coming down and the constituents of the area, yada, yada, yada. And so the World Economic Forum will never tell you that there's books out there and essays that Vladimir Vernadsky had written. They won't even mention his name, As far as they're concerned, he should be thrown into a pot like Christ and boiled for 1,000 years in feces. That's actually in the Talmud. That's what they want to do with messiahs. Anyway, not that Vladimir Vernadsky was a messiah. He was just a brilliant fucking scientist. And much more in tune with what's going on than people that are normally brought to your attention. So, If you go and read the biosphere, if you go and read the noosphere, which is about the elevation of calories out of the biosphere into the thinking process, which augments the biosphere and makes it that much more powerful, because we're actually participating in reinforcing the cycles that we find ourselves in within the biosphere as we go through life. And we think about it and magnify them and therefore have more of an impact. In other words, in a crude sense, you could think of it as the universe wants me to dig Earth and reshape the Earth. And so if I dig Earth, I'm doing a good job for universe. I'm taking the energy from the sun and transmuting these cosmic energies, cosmic radiations into direct mechanical energy, and I'm moving material around on the planet the way that universe would have me do. And that's good. That's the biosphere, right? But the rabbits are doing that. Dogs do that. You know, all the burrowing creatures do that, right? Where we get into the noosphere is that I'm a human and I think about it. So I invent a shovel so I can dig better, and then I invent a power shovel so I can dig even more. And so the noosphere is that much more powerful than the biosphere because of this virtuous positive reinforcement through a feedback loop that involves thinking. And so we know that the powers that be, the globalists, the fucking World Economic Forum, the criminals, don't want you to think. So they're never going to tell you about Vernadsky. They're never going to educate you at all. That's why they school you. That's why you go to a school, to learn to swim with all the other fishes, not to learn to think. Anyway, so at this moment, we're dealing with the breakdown of the financial system. Understand that the activity I do every day when I go in and I buy food, or I get gasoline for my car, or buy diesel or whatever, or get sugar for the hummingbirds, that is economic activity. We exchange a currency. We exchange a species of identification for the transfer of energy between individuals at an abstraction level that is in the noosphere. Money, currency, and stuff is in the noosphere. The Earth doesn't require it, universe doesn't require it, biosphere doesn't require money in order for the world to be transformed, but it's much more transformed once money becomes into existence and we can pay for shit to get done. Anyway though, so when I'm doing that, that's economic activity, right? Everything else on top of that, loans, derivatives, interest, all of that shit, that's all financial, not economic, okay? The economic activity is that exchange of energy between individuals or between groups that allows and facilitates the transfer of that energy from party to party. And so you can think about it this way. I do something, and okay, so I've got a guy in Russia right now who's an engineer. He's an interstellar engineer. Okay, this is Duran Interstellar. This is Jerry Duran. He used to be a head engineer for and prototype developer and this kind of thing for Cirque du Soleil. He's worked for Jacques Cousteau of the aquatic fame, all of that. So the guy's really sharp, right? But he's in Russia. All right, so we're doing a project together. We're doing our little 9 amp replacement for photovoltaics that'll work off of biogas that's gathered from all of this biomass around me and fermented by bacteria, biospheric bacteria, anaerobic bacteria that will produce methane. They'll then use the methane to run this little turbine, a Tesla turbine, and then run a little tiny generator that will produce 9 amps continuously, the way that a photovoltaic will not, okay? Anyway, so Jerry's in Russia, and he's doing all this engineering. So I can get money, species, currency, and energy transfer through the noosphere over to Jerry. Jerry then does work that then comes back to me in the form of thoughts that are encapsulated, written down, archived, etc., drawn out, plans, photographed, created, prototypes, tested, etc., complete thoughts, precise data that comes back to me for that transfer of energy. And so at that level, the noosphere is transferring energy through me over to Jerry and then back again in this complex process that will alter this planet even more so once we get our engineering done, and we can then put this design series out as open source. Everybody can build their own the way we're building our own, although we'll also provide some level of support for the tricky parts. And we will have more energy through the harvest of the biomaterial to come and back and get in our feedback loop in a positive way with the biosphere. And it'll be harmonious, right? In a way that giant windmills chopping eagles to shit are not. And it'll work continuously. Small, it'll just whir around continuously for years and years and years. I'm anticipating a 6 to 8 year lifespan on the motive part, which is the Tesla turbine. But then you should be able to just simply clean the bugger out and start all over again. You know, it'll have some level of wear, but it should run without much degradation through that process because of the way the Tesla turbine is designed, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so the whole point being that the World Economic Forum is fighting the biosphere. Their financial systems are with the World Economic Forum. The economic system is within the biosphere, right? That's where we all trade together. So I'm trading with Jerry, and we're going to be affecting all of this by doing these things remote and so on. But we're not within the World Economic Forum, the Kazarian mafia, the globalist financial systems. As a result of which will persist. Their financial systems are failing now. That's why everybody's in distress. That's why gasoline's so high. That's why the political system is so fucked up. If you have sound money, you do not have unsound politics. So we started having unsound politics in this country in 1930s as a result of really the crash of the gold system, because in 1933 the populace was forbidden for using gold anymore in economic system. And they transferred all of the populace that was using that gold over to the financial system in that process of seizing the gold and so on, right? So yeah, we'd had phony money creeping in since 1913, but it wasn't until 20 years later in 1933 that we see the direct result in the first effective crash of this Federal Reserve Bank. So the Federal Reserve Bank crashed and went bankrupt in 1933. And it was all hidden and covered up with this. The inflation was papered over with artificially created inflation, and off we go, and we're here now. And so what we're happening now is the corrupt government is participating in the crashing process because they want to bring us all into the World Economic Forum Great Reset. Well, we're going to have a great reset, whether we put a big G and a big R in front of it or not. It's happening now because the dollar's dying and there's no cover. There's no world war, there's no pandemic, there's nothing. There's only those fuckers that have mismanaged the whole financial system part on top of our economy all of these 100+ years from 1913 until now. So we're now into the big ugly. And the World Economic Forum, these people are very much like the president of Sri Lanka, who grabbed a bunch of cash in giant fucking suitcases and ran for his life to get on a boat to flee the country as the country erupted over the fucking mismanagement. We've got a world that's mismanaged, and the globalists are the result of that, or the cause of that. They're very much afraid, like the president of Sri Lanka, that they're going to have to grab bags of money and try and flee. Only at a global level, you can't flee anywhere. And so we come to this point now where they're doing every fucking thing they can, dumping the big ugly out, trying to get us to buy into the big ugly that we're weak, trying to buy into the big ugly that we're all doomed, trying to buy into the big ugly that climate change is going to kill us all of this kind of stuff, right? That's their big ugly that they're dumping out on all of us, trying to fuck our minds over because they're assaulting us, and they basically, there's too many of us, and they just want us to kill ourselves as much as possible in order that we might not overcome them as things get worse, which they will. So we've reached this point right now where for the next 2 years at least, we're in a breakdown phase, no matter what. It's baked into the cake because they've paid so many intelligence agencies to bribe so many BLM kind of type guys, go around and burn down so many food processing plants that we know there will be a food processing issue in the United States and in North America and in the rest of the world for at least the next 2 years, because these guys are trying to create what's known as a Holodomor, or a giant starvation event. So we know that this is baked into the cake, and we'll have to deal with that, even if we were to overcome and kill all of the Kazarian mafia tomorrow, or capture them all and put them somewhere, right? Doesn't matter if we kill them or not. In fact, they're better off kept alive and made to suffer and be the education objects so that we can understand what has happened, right? So I don't actually favor killing the guys. Anyway, though, so there's a lot of things that are baked in the cake. Financial system's going to crumble. That's going to take us at least 7 years to overcome. Maybe 6 if we work hard and we're adults and we face it rationally and we get a lot of cooperation, right? But so many of the people have been made stupid and dumb and have been schooled by the Kazarian mafia that I suspect we're going to go 7 years, maybe 8. Anyway, though, so this is after the point that we actually have this crash and face up to the fact that everything's crashed. And so that might be late 2022, that might be early 2023 before we get to the point that I'm calling the end of the big ugly. That's when we recognize that we've been dealing with the big ugly, and from that point on, we're in recovery. Right now, we're in the big ugly because it's still coming out, it's still being exposed. It must be by both sides. The Kazarian mafia, through the World Economic Forum, is exposing it because they're trying to use those negative vibrations to inform and alter our behavior and change things, and they're basically throwing out an inherent expression of themselves. Okay, the SOC, on the other hand, is also doing everything it can to remove any barriers to the populace seeing that big ugly so that they will recognize the big ugly for what it is. And this is necessary because we have to confront the big ugly to overcome it. We have to confront that ugliness within ourselves and then go on out and confront it in the Kazarian mafia and those guys. The reason we have to confront it in ourselves is because they put it there. So first we must cleanse ourselves of these thoughts to understand that we are part of a giant, magnificent, universe-created biosphere. We're not some tenuous little ant colony of hominids hanging onto a rock spinning through space. So I'm not saying external savior here. I'm not saying any of that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is that the magnificence of what we can see in the biosphere is so large, so great, that there's no fucking way in hell that the Kazarian mafia will ever win. They are just massively outnumbered in the energy transfer of the biosphere based on, and their little bit that they're trying to put out just doesn't even come close to being recognizable within the biosphere. The only way they can manipulate things is through the noosphere, through thoughts. And then they make you ratchet down your efforts for universe, back out, get yourself ready to kill yourself, abort your children, turn your hair purple and withdraw from society and all of that kind of stuff and eat bugs, because that's what the World Economic Forum wants, not what the biosphere wants. And this is where we're at now. As I say, it's the big ugly. It's the point of confrontation. We first have to confront ourselves for accepting the thoughts, for going along with them, for promulgating them, for putting them out there in waves, and for being manipulated. So we have to harden ourselves, harden our will, to understand that input coming in must be examined for its potential effects on us before we accept it.